No, the last thing is but yeah. Right there. It's almost. I'll let you do it. I don't know. That's like. Let's see.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here this afternoon to honor Greg Crowder and to recognize the winners of the annual Greg Crowder Memorial Photojournalism Award. Manuel Son, I am visual journalism here, and I will be your host today. In 2007, Troy and Betsy Crowder established this important award as a lasting legacy to their late son, Greg Crowder. Greg was a 1980 Cronkite graduate and a very talented photojournalist. At Cronkite, Greg shot photos for the state press and interned at the Arizona Republic. He went on to work as a longtime photojournalist at the Riverside Press Enterprise in California before his death in 2005. While Greg may no longer be with us, his legacy and impact as an outstanding photojournalist and individual lives on through the recipients who have won this award over the years. I'd like to take a minute to thank Troy and Betsy Crowder for inspiring the next generation of photojournalists and for all they have done on behalf of the students, our school, and photojournalism here at the Cronkite School. Sadly, we lost Betsy Crowder this year. Betsy Crowder this year. Betsy will be remembered for her kindness and her ability to connect with everyone she met. The Crowder Award held a special place in her heart, and she was deeply moved by the talents and achievements of the winners each year. Today, we honor the exceptional accomplishments of this year's Crowder Award winners, while we also remember the memory of Betsy, Troy, and Greg, whose legacy made this possible. Some Crowder Award winners have gone on to work at prestigious national publications and organizations, including the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, the Tennessean, the Statesman Journal in Oregon, while some are freelancers for the publications like the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, to name a few. Since we moved into this building in 2008, the importance of visuals in our industry has continued to grow. Visuals are so important. Nearly all our students learn the basics of capturing images at some point here at Cronkite. But for those who want deeper experiences, we offer both news and sports photojournalism classes. Students can also produce stellar visual content in advanced courses such as News 21, depth reporting, non-narrative video storytelling, advanced online media, and in professional programs such as Cronkite News and the Howard Center for Investigative Journalism. Before we meet our Cronkite or Crowder Award winners and share their terrific work, I'd like to recognize the judges who selected this year's winners. One, Chrissy Pasquale, who has spent time as a photographer at the Denver Post and San Diego Tribune. She's now shooting in Northern California. Mike Simons, a good friend of mine and a veteran photojournalist of 30 years, is a staff photographer at the Tulsa World in Oklahoma. And Barbara Johnston, a photographer at the University of Notre Dame. And before that, a photojournalist at the Philadelphia Inquirers, where she was there for 20 years. So thanks to Chrissy, Mike, and Barbara for all of this. And now to our winners. Samantha Chow is this year's first place winner. Susan Wong took second place, and John Leos for honorable mention. The winner receives recognition for their photography that is displayed in the Cronkite building for a year, and also $1,000. And if you all take a look, the display went up yesterday. It's on the wall on the third floor. And it is to honor the recipients. It's also helped make photojournalism a more visible part of the Cronkite School. So congratulations. So now I'm going to move on over here. John Leos, you had a pretty interesting take here. Let's go through them a few here, if you guys can see. That style, that kind of that darker style. Can you walk us through where were you when you shot this? What was the assignment? What was the project?
Yeah, so this was a project with depth reporting class with Rick Rodriguez for the Cronkite Borderlands project. We spent a week in the Dominican Republic in the spring. And this was a story that we were reporting about. It was a kind of a follow-up on the United States Customs and Border Patrol issued an embargo on a sugarcane company. It's the largest producer in the Dominican Republic. And they enacted the embargo because of conditions of modern day slavery or forced labor on their plantations. And so we traveled around with some kind of local guides to some of these worker housing hamlets, and learned a little bit more about the kind of conditions that these sugarcane workers were living in. They're majority Haitian, and so they're in a particularly vulnerable position, being of Haitian descent and living in the Dominican Republic.
Was it, I mean, it looks pretty rough. Was it rough? Were there some challenges that you faced along the way?
Yeah, there were a lot of challenges. We had a day to report this. We were doing this in an area of the Dominican Republic that is patrolled routinely by the company Central Romana that owns these sugarcane plantations. They have their security forces, which act as kind of a pseudo police force, and we had probably 30 to 40 minutes at each place before we had to move, just to keep one step ahead of the security. We also, had challenges in finding the balance between photographing people and also maintaining kind of a level of anonymity. You can tell in some of these photos, we took them with their faces turned back or in shadow. In the one where the sugarcane workers in the field, he's wiping the sweat off of his face just to kind of obscure some of their identities to keep them protected from retaliation.
And how about the editing process? Was that a pretty big big process? Did you make lots of pictures? How did you go about making the selects?
Yeah, we made lots of pictures. And I had originally pulled out the photos that I had thought would work well with the story that we were working on. But I had the course, we had a great mentor in Adriana Zabrauskas, who's a freelancer for the Times and other publications, who works regularly in these kinds of conditions. And she went through the photos with me on a second pass and pulled out some photos that I honestly would have never thought of, but ones that she said, and she kind of taught me that it's not just about the content of the photo, but also about the feeling. And one in particular is the one of the school bus, which is a school bus here that you can see. There's a smudge on the right side. That's because it was taken through a window of a moving car. And this is one that I maybe wouldn't consider as publishable, but she kind of brought it home to me that the smudge adds kind of a painterly aspect to it, that it's kind of gives a feeling that aids to the story and not just
it's a little
subject.
dreamy, if you will. If you and you can't see it very well here, but if you ever took a look at this, you will be able to see that it's really, really interesting. Just the way it looks, for sure. It's got a good movement to it, that left to right movement as well. I like that. So you're graduating in December, is that right?
Yes, if all goes well.
And what do you have in plan? What do you have anything planned? What's in store for John Leos after this?
That's a good question. I'm looking for work. If anyone's looking for
And if you
visual
had your druthers,
journalists.
if you could go out and do anything, what is it you'd like to do?
Yeah, my training is mostly in documentary filmmaking and video work, and so moving into journalism, I'm really looking to work as a visual journalist for a publication. My areas of focus are immigration issues, the environment, and international policy.
Did you ever take non-narrative storytelling here?
No, but I was in Peter Bick's sustainability and documentary class.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
We have one of the best professors here for non-narrative storytelling in the United States and the world, from what I'm told. Lynn French is over there.
Oh.
All right. Thank you,
Yeah,
John.
sure.
Thank you. And Susan, how are you, Susan? How's the new gig?
It's great. It's awesome.
Really quickly, hey, Randy, Susan is a big time photographer with NASCAR now. So if you need anything, she'll make it happen for you. I know you like to shoot NASCAR and some sports. And actually, Susan does have a question for you.
I kind of asked you earlier, but we would love for you to come shoot a race for us.
Sure, we could probably.
So, well, listen, Susan, you finished not too long ago. Susan was kind of funny yesterday. She's been out of Arizona for 4.5 months and then went to North Carolina to work for NASCAR and came back, and she couldn't believe how muted it was. She's like, somebody turned down the saturation on Arizona after being in North Carolina. Looking through your pictures, Susan, I see sports and sports and sports and sports and sports and portrait and more sports. So I think we have an idea of what you like. I mean, is this what you like here? I mean, is this what's your favorite thing to shoot, or what are you doing?
So obviously, I can tell all these are sports photos. I've been shooting sports photos for years now. It's kind of my specialty. It's what I want to do. And the role I landed in now at NASCAR has been awesome. Being able to shoot different sports, obviously. I mean, motorsports is very different than basketball or football or volleyball, any of these sports that I are shown here. But the base that I learned here at Cronkite shooting these traditional sports has helped me and try to make me, shoot differently in motorsports compared to other photographers that have been shooting motorsports for a longer time. But yeah, all these photos that are shown here, I've like forgotten like which ones I've submitted, honestly, but what did you ask? Sorry, I lost the train of thought.
No, just keep going. I'm just doing, you shooting a lot of sports. Is there
Yeah.
anything in particular you like shooting? I mean, is NASCAR, is that it for you? And don't worry if it's not, we're jamming the signal to North Carolina right now. They won't know. I mean, is there something that you like to shoot more than? So yesterday she spoke to a few classes and it was lots of really, really good pictures of the motorsports, but you can see there's only one here. So making different pictures like this. Tell us about this one a little bit.
So this was shot in Vegas during the Pac-12 tournament earlier this year. And I mean, I've shot the Pac-12 tournament for multiple years now. I think it was one of the first big events that I got to shoot here as a Cronkite student. It was right before COVID, like literally the week before COVID. And that was my first Pac-12 tournament. And I shot, there's like 4 games a day and you're shooting all day, every day, and this was my last tournament. The one that this photo is in. And I wanted to do some different stuff because I've been shooting basketball for so long. I've been shooting all types of stuff for so long, and I wanted to make it feel a little different. So I wanted to, slow the shutter down because at this point I had already started shooting a little bit of motorsports, so I know kind of how to pan and follow cars. But I was like, what if I followed a player and a person and try to shoot it that way, and just to convey that there's so much motion going on in sports in general, and shooting at a slow shutter in traditional sports is something you don't see as often because everyone wants to capture high action, want to capture every single face of motion and the fans and the whole environment. So I wanted to kind of show that they're moving so fast in basketball too. And so just something creative. I like that the colors and everything are like blended and I don't know, different things, but it was very cool. The experience with shooting this stuff is a lot of fun. That's kind of what drew me to sports. I played sports growing up and everything, and kind of how I got into this. But
yeah, you make your pictures, you get when you got your pictures that then you can have a little bit of fun, maybe take some chances, some risks. I imagine that you didn't just make one picture and it turned out perfectly. I would imagine that you took
quite a few. Yeah,
several.
I sat there for a while. I was sitting on the baseline shooting the regular action stuff, but I was like, let's get creative here. I'm going to be here for a couple more days, shooting a couple more games, and let's do some stuff that, that is not traditional, I guess. And, I just was like, let's just pan. And I was, at this point, I was doing like double exposure stuff. There's none in here, but I was just trying to shoot different stuff just to change up the style and get creative with different things.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So really quick, I know you've been with NASCAR, not terribly long, 4, 6, something like that. What's the coolest thing you've done so far? What you got a story for us? Maybe something that is unusual, but other than the fighting, there's so much fighting in the NASCAR route that she does that. Other than that, is there anything unusual or kind of interesting happen?
I learn something new every day. It's a fun time. It's a lot going on. I don't just do photo anymore. I do a little bit of, so my role is senior social content coordinator. So mostly a social media role, but do a lot of photo, video, graphic work as well. I think, the one thing that I can really remember right now is I went and got a really creative shot, a really unique shot that no one will ever get again. I don't know if I should be saying this publicly or out loud, but may have gone into a little trouble for it. But a couple weeks ago in Bristol, Tennessee, at Bristol Motor Speedway during the ARCA East Championship race, I'm going to try to explain this in a way that people that don't understand racing will hopefully understand, but pit road is just think of an arena, I guess. And then infield is where you usually see grass, but in our case, it's where all the haulers are parked, where the cars parked and everything. And then the racetrack is an oval, so it's around it. Pit road is between the oval, the racetrack, and the infield. And I'm shooting from there after the race, after the winner is across the finish line and all the rest of the cars are gridding back onto pit road, shooting from there, all goes normal. Someone is like, hey, do you want to go grab that at start finish? Obviously the winner with the car and celebrating at start finish line after his burnouts and everything. I was like, cool, I'll go over there. So I hop over a safer barrier, which is like a 4.5 feet tall wall basically, and it's a wall, there's a foam block and then another wall. I'm 5'3", I'm not that tall. So I'm jumping over it like pushing my whole body weight to jump over it. And I'm over there on start finish line, taking photos and grabbing social content, whatever. Super fun, super cool. Like obviously so much adrenaline happening at that moment because it's a really cool thing to be able to go shoot. And then we wear these photo vests that have like a number on it. And someone yells 236, and I'm like, oh shit, that's me. And I'm like, turn around, I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, you're blocking other people. And I'm like, definitely not supposed to be here, huh? And I like realized in that moment, I'm like, I'm not supposed to be at the start finish line. So I'm jumping back over and tell my boss, I'm like, hey, if you get a angry email about 236, that was me. And I mean, everything's okay now. And it wasn't really that big of a deal. I probably never go on start finish line ever again. But you know, I got these really cool shots of the winner of the race, and everything, and the emotion that you captured there that you can't really see anywhere else because you're so up close to that whole situation, and getting video content of him waving the checkered flag and all that. It was super cool. It was one of the coolest experiences that I have recently, you know, I had the chance to go do. I mean, it was very different. You know, you'll never, it's a unique shot. No one's really gonna ever get that shot again, except if you're Fox broadcast or NBC broadcast or whatever. It's reserved for broadcast to be up there. So getting photos and stills in that moment is something you don't really see otherwise, but it was really cool to be able to do that and just learning. I mean, obviously I learned from them. I'm not gonna do that again, but like having those photos still, and they're still living up.
But you're not suggesting to everybody here that they need to break the rules to have, no, not at all. But it's funny because there's a video that Susan has, and it's just the winner at the finish line, and then there's only Fox television photographer, and then and then there's Susan. That was it. So yeah, you definitely were not supposed to be there, but that's okay. All right, Susan. So last year you did you were here, you were traveling and doing things with the Sun Devil softball team. How was that experience?
It was awesome. I traveled with softball, volleyball, I think football, basketball. I traveled quite a lot while I was in my master's year here before May. And I mean, traveling with softball was really cool. I got to go to Oklahoma, Utah, California, all these types of places that I'd never been before. I mean, this photo was taken in Salt Lake City, Utah. You can kind of see the snow in the background still, and it was so cool. Like our game got moved a day or two. I think it was like a day, got postponed a day because the field was covered in snow the day prior, I think, or something like that. It was weird, but you know, obviously, I got so much access working with the team. I mean, on the team side of things, you know, you get a different access than, you know, you do as a regular media member covering something like this. So I'm like basically in the huddle in the grass at this point, and I'm shooting up to like kind of capture, you know, this team bonding moment as they get ready to go play a game. And you know, it's really cool to be able to be in those spaces and be in those moments where you can capture things that no one else is able to capture. Like I said earlier, like working
access. It's
key.
always access.
Very like you get to be more, you get to do things that not everyone gets to do, and I mean that's really, really cool. So I mean, I love working on the team side. I mean, I work on a league side now, so it's still really cool to be able to have all that access. That is a little bit different than a regular media member.
All right, so final thing, have you found a home at NASCAR? What's in store for you? You think this is a good place, or are we looking to go somewhere else maybe? What do you see for Susan?
I mean, Susan is happy in North Carolina. Susan, you know, I didn't know anything about racing really at all about a year and a half ago, really at all, knew nothing. And I got to intern with NASCAR Social last summer and worked on different bunch of projects and different things on the national level. So Cup, Xfinity's, trucks, and then I continued on as a freelancer through the rest of the year, right? Like up till like March, I was freelancing for NASCAR, covering all types of things. I mean, I got to cover the championship here in Phoenix in November last year. If you get the chance, go to the championship in November this year. It's gonna be cool. And that's not like a plug or anything, but I'm just saying like it's a cool experience. Like if you've never seen any racing or anything, like the championship is here in Phoenix. So it's really cool. I got to go do that. And I really didn't know that I was going to love racing as much as I did. And I just kind of fell into it and got really lucky with the experiences and opportunities that I've been, got to do and stuff. But yeah, and the stuff I do now is very, very different than the stuff at the national level. The national level is very glamorous, these are big names, like millions of people are watching and stuff. The stuff I do now, on the weekly side, on the local short track side, is very different. These guys that are racing in our series are blue collar guys. Like the guy that won our national championship sells yachts for a living. Like that's his day job. That's what he does during the week, and he races on the weekends. And I thought that was super cool. I mean, the stories kind of write themselves in that sense. I mean, a big part of what we do as social media people is tell stories, but in a way that's digestible to people that are just scrolling fast. So you want to be able to capture those moments and those stories really quickly, and it's really interesting, and it's I love doing it. I mean, I really didn't know how much I was gonna love racing, but like seriously, I haven't thought about anything else at all. Like I love this.
So
It's
we've
so
found
awesome.
the home at NASCAR. That's good. That's great. Thank you, Susan.
Can I add one thing?
Oh,
So as we transition to the next person, the person that took the photo of me is sitting next to me to my right. So that's kind of a fun tidbit.
and who is that? Oh, Samantha. I was thinking over here. I thought you were looking at here. Oh, well, there you go. We can show this all day long. Sorry. And now Samantha. Finally, Samantha, congratulations. You've got $1,000. And I hate to tell you this, but your parents texted me and they said that you owe them $999 for something. So you got $1 left to spend. Good job. Good
Yay.
job on that.
Go to the Dollar Tree.
Yeah. So here we are again. Kind of feels like Groundhog Day. You were sitting next to me last year around this time, and we were looking at some pictures. So let's flip through a few. Now, I noticed here that you've got everything from some type of sports features to news features to feature features to news events, a little bit of everything. Some sports here, obviously. This is part of the story that you had worked on, right? Is there anything you like in particular? I mean, you've got such a broad take here that you turned in. Do you like shooting everything? Is there one thing in particular you like shooting more than the other? What do you feel is your area?
Yeah, I don't know if I have an area. I like to shoot everything, sports, features, weather, news. I like it all. I don't know if there's any one particular area that I would just only want to shoot photos of.
Do me a favor. Tell us a little bit about this picture here.
So this was a really unique story. Korean War soldier. I can't remember how many years. Is it 60?
Korea was in what, 50, what is it, 32, 42, 50, 51, 52?
Okay, so
Somebody do the math.
70.
There you go.
Yep, 70 something, we'll say that. Soldier had gone missing. His remains were never returned. It was assumed that he had died in the war. And 70 years later, his remains were returned to Arizona. And his family, that's actually his sister right there, laying roses on his casket as his remains are finally about to be laid to rest.
So how long did this story take you? I mean, you contacted multiple?
I worked with a broadcast reporter and a writer. And so most of the ranging was done through the broadcast reporter and the writer. And I went down with them for the day to, I think the ceremony might have been an hour we were there.
Okay.
And then
All right.
came back and turned over the photos.
I know that, I reached out to you, and this was actually one of my favorite images, and you were like, if we have to. I'm like, oh, okay. So you completed your master's degree this past May, correct? And you took a full-time job. Let me take a deep breath. You are a multimedia specialist for media relations and strategic communications.
Yes.
Does that fit on a business card? That's a long.
Well, if you want to be specific, I'm a multimedia specialist on the visual communications team at Media Relations and Strategic Communications Office of the President.
Okay, yes. How is that going? What does it look like, a day in the life of Samantha Chow? I know that, what did I say? We were going to go, you come here and you're like, what time do I need to be there? I'll be here at this time. Then we're going to go do some lunch. Oh yeah, great. But, and then all of a sudden you've got to leave at 2, hard out. I mean, is it happening like that all the time? Are you getting calls that you go here, go there? I mean, what's that day like?
I mean, it comes and goes, and that's with like any photojournalism or photo job that you have. Like some days, like you don't know where you're gonna go, and sometimes ASU just sends me places. But other things that I do are much more planned out. So like an event that I'm photographing later today was kind of a last minute ask, photograph some engineering students. And then later today was something I have more planned out of doing time lapses from the roof of Manzanita.
Well,
So
that
it's all
sounds
over the
fun.
place.
Yeah, I remember one time, and I'm sure Chow has some things, and Lynn as well. I started my day at 9:30 in the morning, and then I ended up in Mexico one time, and I had to go buy a toothbrush and things when I got there. So I definitely know how that goes.
Yeah, the ASU's first football game this year, as many of you guys know, went until 2 a.m. And I had some requests earlier in that day that came from from higher up people. So I had to be in work at 9 a.m. and I was like, okay, maybe I'll just go for like the first half of the football game. And then, as many of you guys know, it got really interesting. And then there was a dust storm, and I was like, okay, maybe I should stay. Like, this could be interesting. It could be a 2-day game. And then I was there until like 1:30 in the morning. Got home around 2:30. It's a long day.
It happens.
All by choice.
It happens. So, I've known you as being a very creative photographer, always looking for stories, always looking for different angles, looking to create multimedia, whether it's using images in a unique way or shooting video or time lapses as it is. Is there anything you're working on now? Is there anything that, are we allowed to be a little creative here? And it's okay. It's okay to say. It's all right.
I don't know if I can always talk about like what I'm working on now.
Oh,
But I finished a project that was a little different about emojis. It was super, it originally started off as we needed something for Emoji Day. And a lot of what we do at ASU Media Relations is we take professors and we find something interesting about what they're studying and tie them to a story. And so World Emoji Day was coming up, and I started doing a lot of research about emojis, and I found that Phoenix is actually getting an emoji. It's a little Phoenix bird. It's really cute. And so it turned into a little bit of a longer project for me and super creative we put the camera like above head, and we used cutouts of emojis to tell the story of how Phoenix is getting an emoji.
okay. What is this? Is this been released? Do we?
Yeah, it's on at ASU News Official. The city of Phoenix also posted it, and it's on YouTube.
Okay.
The actual emoji will come sometime spring 2024.
Well, all right. All right. And so I asked everybody else. So I got to ask you. Sorry, my phone's ringing. So I'm sure it's really important. What's the future hold? Are we pretty happy here? We like Phoenix, or are we looking to move on? And maybe not right now. Is there a dream job that you like to have?
I love what I'm doing now.
Okay.
I love Arizona. I've been here my whole life. I don't see myself leaving.
Apparently, when you go to North Carolina and you come back, it's all, yeah. Go to North Carolina with Susan for a few weeks, and she'll host you. Well, thank you, Samantha. Do we have any questions, you all? I'm sure you can shout it out and everybody can hear. Are there any questions from you all? Yes.
Yeah, so we were traveling around to different communities called Bates, and we were in the La Romana district or state.
And go ahead, yeah. Susan is the, that's right.
So I got into, like, I accepted the internship, I think March of 2022, to work for NASCAR. Started that, did that through the summer of last year, so May through August. And I was just, picking things up as I was going. I didn't really know much at all about racing. Never watched NASCAR race prior to that at all, ever. And didn't know anything about the sport. And that's what I, preach to, students in your guys' shoes nowadays. It's like, be open-minded about different sports and different things and different opportunities out there. You may think that you're going to go one way and life will throw you a bone and completely change your life. And here I mean, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I grew up in San Francisco. I mean, this is really long-winded, but I grew up in San Francisco, knew nothing about racing. So very weird how I ended up there. And I still every day I learn something new. And I say this all the time, like I learned something new about the sport, I learned something new about my job, about photography, about social media every day. Like racing is so different than anything else. But it's a lot of fun. Like, you know, about the different series, about the different drivers. There's so many stories to be told, and it's so cool. I don't even know how to, like, I can talk about forever about this, but yeah.
So she, you had an event, you flew in here Wednesday, right? Yeah, and you had an
Yesterday.
event Tuesday night,
Yeah, I was.
and then you have an event, you fly back tomorrow and you have an event Saturday.
It's a lot. I mean, it's a busy life. But it's a lot of fun. I mean, yeah, I did not need to be there on Tuesday. It was like a NASCAR, iRacing gaming event. But I went to the event, but I didn't get home until like 2:30. My flight was at 7 a.m. So I started packing at like 4:30. I had to leave at 5:15, get to the airport. I'm here. I didn't sleep. And here I am now.
Well, you did
today.
sleep in today. I
I
mean,
slept
you
in
did.
today. It's fine, but I'm here. But and then when I get back Friday night, the next morning on Saturday, we have a huge race in North Wilkesboro, which is a really historic old track, and the modified tour, which is NASCAR's like oldest sanctioned division, is racing there, and it's the first time in series history that they're racing there in the NASCAR 75 years that they're going to be racing in North Wilkesboro. So it's a big deal. It'll be really cool. I mean, I'll be doing all types of content. So if you want to follow along at NASCAR Roots, I guess there's my plug.
There you go.
You'll see, you get to see what I do, I guess.
Any other question? Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
Samantha, how did the black and white photo of the group of people holding cameras?
Yeah, so that was actually a project I ended up working with Adriana Safraskis on, who's with the Times. John Leos worked with her. And this was a story about essentially what happens if you pass and your family can't afford your burial, you don't have next of kin, where do you go? And so there's a cemetery called White Tank Cemetery. It's way out in Litchfield. And so every year, I think day before Thanksgiving, I think it's a Thanksgiving Eve vigil, volunteers come out and pay their respects to those who have passed. And so that was the vigil part. But I ended up spending, after like taking these photos, I was like, I want to do a whole story on this. So I worked with Adriana Safraskis, and whole semester I later ended up finding a woman who knew her grandma had passed, but never knew where she ended up, and found out she was at the cemetery.
And this cemetery has nothing.
It is a big dirt lot with some
Nothing.
rocks.
I went out there, we were thinking of doing maybe, I don't know, we were flying or something. So I live near the place. So we went out there and it is just nothing but dirt, sand, whatever. There's no large heads. There's nothing. It's
No, everything's like a brick headstone or like a little copper marker that
Yeah.
most of them have been stolen. They originally did copper markers and someone went through and scrapped them. So it's really kind of a sad place, but sweet that there's volunteers that come out and do these services every week.
And there was a question, yes.
I know you said like different types of pictures. I was just wondering, like, which specifically, like, was it weather or sports? What was like the hardest?
Sports is always challenging, which is, I think, why I like taking photos, because you never know you can predict action, but you really don't know what's going to happen, if the ball is going to get turned over and go a different direction. So I enjoyed that as a challenge. I enjoy doing features like this because you can be a little bit more artistic and meaningful in how you place things. Weather's just fun.
We have a question over here. Sure, go ahead.
This is for Samantha. Can you just touch on what this award means to you personally as a photographer?
Oh, I'm so honored. I remember coming in as a freshman, and any photojournalist that comes to Cronkite, like, they know what that wall on the 3rd floor is. And so it's something I've always looked up to, as a freshman. I remember Nicole Neri's photos were up there, before they got transitioned over. And I just remember being in awe of like, wow, like to see your peers work on that wall and have something to look up to. It's motivational. And, you know, to see my photos on the wall that I've looked up to for the past 4 years, it's really cool.
And they're up there now, and I saw you up there. I was meaning to tell you, and I think I just kind of forgot, but they put them up, what was it, yesterday, right, Susan? In the morning, they were not there, and then all of a sudden, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so if you all are not quite sure, it's the third floor over on the north side of the school. Any other questions for this? Yes.
Is the quality of photography that videography doesn't have?
Is this for Sam or anybody? Can we ask John? John does a lot of video. I know that everybody does video, but John, you're,
Yeah.
or no, oh, yeah.
Yeah, for videography and video production, when I try to tell stories with video, I think about, as I'm shooting, I'm building a palette of different scenes and different shots that I can cut together in a few different ways. In photo, you have a frame, you have one moment. You can have a series, you can do a series of shots. But it's only gonna be rendered as a single frame. And so for me, that is kind of the bigger difference is, yeah, in video, you have time to tell a story, you have a variety of shots that you can use, and in photo, you really have to get the whole story across in a single image.
You guys want to add to that, Sam, or?
I mean, they're both complicated in their own ways. And I think kind of just look at them as like two platforms of how you want to convey a story. Sometimes things just work better in a video. Sometimes things look better in a single image or a series of 3 to 5. So.
What she said. I think having a base in photo helped me be a better videographer, whether it is like, using like a DSLR or a mirrorless camera to shoot video, or whether it's using my phone to go shoot video. I think learning how to frame and compose things as a stills photographer built that foundation for me to be a better videographer and kind of capture those moments. I mean, with video, your cropping is different than how you crop in photo. You're cropping in to just see whatever. And in video, you can crop the length. Like there's different things about it. But I mean, learning photo first is helpful.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions? Yes.
Don, you mentioned that you were focusing on work on integration. How is it like taking pictures of both people, like taking care of the border and people trying to get into the border, into the country?
Yeah, I mean, I think immigration is one of the great crises of our times, and a lot of countries have similar problems. One of the reasons we went to the Dominican Republic was because a lot of the same problems that they are facing, whether it's economic migration, whether it's people there on who are working, agricultural workers who are immigrants, political debates about who is a member of a society or a country were reflected in what's happening in the States. Another story that I did for this project was the Dominican Republic is building a border wall between them and Haiti, and I did a video project on that one as well. And so the stories are really complicated, same as in the States. There's a lot of different nuance to how immigration is covered. There's a lot of different people at stake, and I think for us as journalists, it's our role to kind of show the truth, to show what the different perspectives could be or are. And yeah, for immigration in particular, I think it's really important to get that truth right.
All right. Well, thank you. Is that it? Any others? All right. Well, thank you all. Congratulations to you. Susan's gonna gather her things. All right. Whoops. I am pleased and honored to introduce tonight's guest speaker. We all know him as a Major League Baseball pitcher, a player who intimidated some of the best batters in the league, a 10-time All-Star, 5-time Cy Young Award winner, a World Series champion, and second in strikeouts all-time with 4,875. What is not well known is his passion for photography, which began when he studied photojournalism at the University of Southern California. From 1983 to 85, I believe, right? I'm joking. Following his retirement from baseball in early 2010, following the 2009 season, he was able to focus his attention back to his passion. Please welcome Randy Johnson.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Chris is up there. So this is going to be a little bit interesting because we're moving away now from the slideshow to a web. But before we do that, take us back, Randy. Take us back to when you were at in college, and I don't want to be cliche, but where it all started. And if baseball never came calling, would what? How did that go?
Well, I've always enjoyed photography. And obviously, it probably started, my freshman year in high school, because then I got into a couple of camera classes in high school. And then my senior year in high school, I got drafted, and then I also got a scholarship to go to college. And so I chose to go to college. And initially, I needed to just take some general ed classes and get my GPA up a little bit at USC. But then I was asked to, what did I want to major in? And I really enjoyed photography from my high school days. And I thought that I would get to the next level of wherever I was at then in my photography. And so I started studying photojournalism, understanding the dark room, and then the opportunity to shoot for the college newspaper, the Daily Trojan at USC. That opened up a lot of opportunities for me. And then at the same time, I'm playing baseball as well.
I missed the dark room. You missed the dark room? Do you have a dark room at home, or you shoot film anymore?
No, well, I do shoot film. As you can see in the picture there, that's a medium format 6x7 camera. So I do shoot lots of film. And I always thought that, when I got to the point of being able to have a house, I would have my own dark room and all that. And I think it's just a whole lot easier to shoot film, put it in a bag and bring it somewhere and let them do it. They're a little bit better at it than I would be. But I still enjoy shooting film for sure.
No, I agree. I think I still have a few rolls somewhere of my kids that are undeveloped. I think I've got a roll in that film camera somewhere in my house. All right, Chris, can we go? Can we move to, we're going to see how this works. We're going to look at Randy's website and his Instagram, and I've got my mouse here. So I'm going to be working this. So really quickly, Randy, we're going to do, I wanted to go through and start with the concerts here. So I don't know if you all knew, Randy, you I used to bump into you all the time at concerts after you retired. I know Michael Chow over there has seen you here and there before. You're a big fan of some of these the concerts. What's your favorite type of music? Is it? I mean, there's the great Neil Peart. Rest in peace, Neil. Best drummer of all time. Is there a favorite band that you enjoyed shooting? And I mean, is it mostly the hair metal? Well, that was my favorite. Anytime Kiss came into town, I called that one.
I don't really have a favorite band per se. What got me into concert photography was shooting for the Daily Trojan. For whatever reason, there wasn't a lot of photographers on the staff that were interested in going to concerts and taking a few pictures for a concert review. I enjoyed doing that. I saw some of the coolest concerts to this day. Back in the early 80s, I still have slides and negatives from those shows. But that's what got me into concert photography. And then I did other photography as well, you know, some feature stuff and kind of like what we all do. And then, you know, when I left college, I had a passion for photography, but then I was going on to my next passion and hopefully my livelihood, which was baseball. So the camera got kind of put to the back, and I needed to learn how to play baseball a little bit better, and if I was going to be doing it for a living. So that essentially took 26 years of my life. And I still had a camera, and I still picked up the camera, and I still used it, but it wasn't as much. But then when I did retire in 2009, I did a whole lot of photography. And initially what kind of got me into photography after I retired was I did a lot of work for the military. I volunteered to do a lot of USO work. And so what that consisted of was just giving my time and traveling all over the world, Iraq and Kuwait and South Korea, and shaking hands and meeting the military, the men and women that support our country and put their lives on the line. And I would bring my camera and take pictures of certain things from that. And then, you know, then I just started traveling on my own. I had the travel bug, and then I had also met a lot of interesting people in the music field and asked if I could bring my camera, and met a lot of people that managed bands. And it just opened up the door to opportunities that I never thought that I would have. But I enjoyed, you know, shooting concert photography because I was doing it in college. So I had that natural passion for it. And now I was doing it with bands that were, you know, really successful bands.
Now, looking back in college when you're shooting film, and I mean, if you had, you know, 800 speed, whether it was, what is it, T-Max or Trax, I can't remember, and then even the 16 to pushing the
Trimax 400.
You had 400,
Yeah.
so I don't know how you even shot anything
Yeah.
with that. What do you think about some of the cameras today, where one of my students shot, it was an Elton John impersonator that was here, and I look at their information and I'm looking at it was 20,000 ISO.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had to go up that high, but with digital cameras now, the sensor is so good that you can have the ability to go up that high. Back in the day when I was shooting for a college newspaper, there was no digital cameras, there were no cell phones, there was no iPhones. It was just film cameras. And you know, I will say, back when I was all of your age, shooting for a college newspaper or going to a concert in general, the lighting was a lot better back then than it is now. Now in today's going to concerts, there's lots of LED lights and lights that tend to wash out
Right.
with the bright, they're so saturated that, you know, there's less white light, which any photographer understands. Having white light on your subject is what we all dream about. And that is occasionally the case for a bigger artist, having access to Billy Joel, Elton John, and being on stage to be able to shoot those shows is incredible. A lot of those heavy metal bands, they may have more saturation in their lighting, but the bigger acts will have more white light. And, you know, that's what I really enjoy, just shooting and traveling now, not just concerts.
Yeah. So, you know, I understand when we are looking at the bands. I mean, when you grew up and rock and roll, the bands, just the big acts, they were fantastic, right? And traveling and touring. But then you also have a lot of wildlife. How did this?
Well,
come
I
about?
think, you know, the concert photography started easily being at USC and being
Sure,
asked to do that
sure.
for the Daily Trojan. The travel photography was able to happen when I retired and could afford to go to Africa or could
Okay.
afford to travel somewhere around the world. There's probably not, times have changed, but you know, when I was 19, 20 years old, I wasn't traveling the world. I wasn't a jet setter. Now I have the ability to travel all over the world and less concert photography and more meaningful photography to me, which is seeing the world and capturing the world.
Sure, and you were telling us earlier that you had just got back from, is it Africa? Is that?
I just got back from Tanzania, Kenya, and Ethiopia.
Wow. And he was showing some video earlier that's pretty fantastic. But you've got a lot of nice stuff. And I'm going to get to your other page here shortly. Is there anything that you like photographing more than one more than the other when it comes to whether
No,
it's
I think the
wildlife?
beauty is that they're all different.
Yeah.
You know, they all require a different mindset, a different, you know, cameras, possibly different lenses and different opportunities are going to present themselves based on what I'm photographing. Animals such as just being back from Africa, the animals are wild. They're not going to listen to me and say, can you look at me one more time? Or, you know, they're doing their own thing. They're walking away. So what I capture here is what I capture. It's in the wild.
Right.
Ethiopia is pretty raw. You know, I remember when I was 7, 8 years old, you know, back in the early 70s, before any of you were born, I was looking at National Geographic magazines for the pictures and seeing pictures that I'm taking now. And sometimes I stop in my tracks and go, wow, I remember looking at pictures like this that were the cover of National Geographic. And now I'm taking pictures myself and having photography exhibits on Africa. So that has more meaning to me and more impact to me than the concert photography. Concert photography was just more available, more there. If I could travel all over the world, I would more frequently, but it's not possible. But when I'm back, then maybe there's a concert and I do that. But I really enjoy just traveling and taking what to me is now in my life more meaningful pictures, which is things that I can share with other people. And sometimes that can be concert photography, but you know, a lot of people don't go to Africa or Ethiopia and have life-changing experiences. And a lot of people won't have those opportunities. But if I could take a picture such as that, it will create questions from people, and they'll ask questions about what was it like meeting someone like that? What is the meaning of having a plate in their lip and various things like that? You know, my Africa exhibit that's going on in New York right now, I have got to meet a lot of people and they were inquisitive. They've never been to Africa before. What is it like to see a wild animal outside of the zoo? These things are not caged. They're walking up to your car. What's it like for that? I'm so inquisitive. I want to go to Africa now, seeing your pictures. So, you know, that's why I think I enjoy taking pictures such as this now than concerts, although concerts are fun.
Okay, well, you ruined all my questions here from here on out about the concerts. What have you had any close calls with some of the wild animals? Any close calls with the wild animals?
Not had any, no. I think
No?
everything, you know, I got guides and things seem to be always under control and no close calls.
Right. This was actually, I put this one up there. This is one of my favorites here. So the picture you made here with the painting, the body, it looks like painted, but the tree and the hat.
Well, it's all about
this one.
You know, the photographers here, it's all about being creative. You know, that obviously was taken with the digital camera. It started off as color picture, and well, what does it look like if you be a little creative and turn it black and white, you know, and maybe put a blurred vignette around it and, you know, kind of change things up a little bit. So a lot of times people don't have the time, you know, photojournalists are all about taking a picture, giving it to the photo editor, and that's it.
Yeah.
But when you get away from something like that and you do it for yourself on social media, then you have the opportunity to be creative. And I would encourage that, because being creative is what catches people's eyes in today, looking at photography, you know?
Yeah, we try to help our students understand that, you know, try and shoot something, try and look at it with a different eye, try and do it from here. Susan, when she was shooting basketball, she had, you know, 1,000 pictures that were all this, to try something different. And I think it's very important here, when you're looking at pictures.
It's pretty safe to say photography's been around for a long time, and there's been a lot of great photographers that were before us that set the tone, that set the stage for us. So just about everything has been done now as well. From 30, 40, 50 years ago to the present, where people are so innovative about what is, you know, really will capture someone's eye. Being a influencer on social media with their photos, because they're so creative, and visually they know what will be more appealing to someone than maybe what was available back in the day 30, 40 years ago.
Right. No, absolutely. Well, these are, when I looked through these, I was really amazed. You know, I knew that we'd seen you places shooting and this, that, and the other, but it's very clean. Your photography is very clean. You've got a good eye that, you know, even the cheetah sitting on the rock, I think it was a cheetah that, you know, over here, and shooting it the way that you shot it was very interesting. There's a video, I don't know if it's here, but there's a video that you shot. Yeah, here it is. This was really, really interesting. I know it's not still photography, but I thought this was a pretty cool scene here, just being out there. I imagine just miles and miles and miles away from.
Unfortunately, video will probably do it more justice than a single frame picture of that. In a circumstance like this, video will tell the story much better than just one single picture. But, you know, it's 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and this is called the Great Migration. And they're crossing the Mara River. They start off in South Africa and they migrate 100, you know, hundred thousands of wildebeest and zebras migrate from the south all the way up to the north. And the challenge is to go wherever they're going for greener pastures and water, and then get back down to the south where it all started and make it alive. And what I mean by that is when you watch these crossings at 7 o'clock in the morning, or whatever time that you may see one, there's the more I went, and I've been to Africa 5 times, the more I was inquisitive, asking my guide questions, and then they would point things out. And then naturally you see things happen and you realize what a life they have in surviving. And in a picture like this, they're across the other side of the river. They're wanting to come over to where I'm at. Doesn't seem that big of a deal. But what you don't see in this frame is right down below me are 25-foot Nile crocodiles, the biggest things I've ever seen in the world. And over time, my guide would say, you know, you see them sitting on the bank and they know that the migrations is coming because they can feel the vibrations and the water moving and trembling, because there's could be 5,000, there could be 50,000 wildebeest on the other side. It's just a matter how many at that particular time are migrating. But the point being is, when they start, they won't stop until they're all over. But it's chaos when it first starts, and it's survival of the fittest. Truly, it's a stampede. But the Nile crocodile will wait, and he will just slither in the water, and everybody just kind of keeps their eyes on him. And then when he sees fit, he will open up those jaws and grab something. And it happens so fast. As a photographer, if you blink of an eye, it'll be gone, because then the crocodile will be under the water with whatever he captures. but it's a life-changing moment that if you survive the crossing of the river, then there could be lions waiting for you on this other side, and I've seen that happen. Or if it's not the crocodiles, not the lions, then you could drown because there's so many wildebeest coming, you can't freely swim across the other side. So I've learned a lot through all of this in watching this, and it's one of the greatest wonders that I've ever seen in captured, whether it's video or single frames like this. And what I had seen in the past that really caught my eye, that I didn't have that opportunity to see, was early morning crossings with the sun at their back and in my face, which highlighted the dust that they would kick up because there would be thousands of them. And in this particular picture, I was able to capture the dust that they kicked up, so you could see kind of the chaos. But it's just breathtaking moments, whether it's either a short video on my iPhone or a one single shot with my camera.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I that was something I noticed, and I actually put one of your pictures up at the beginning. I thought that was a pretty cool take. I know you've done a lot of traveling, and you just got a lot of fantastic pictures, really fantastic pictures. Let's go into some questions. Are there any questions we have out here? Let's go here, right here.
So, for like, what's the next place you want to go to photograph wildlife? I know you've been to Africa. Where's the next place on your radar?
So the next place you'd like to photograph, where would that be?
Well, I do a lot I'm on social media, as you can see, and I get a lot of great ideas through social media. I follow a lot of photographers. They give me ideas. They inspire me. There's no place right now, having just got back from Africa. Now it's about being home and getting through the rest of the year and the holidays and the beginning of baseball next year. I do a little bit of work for the Diamondbacks, but planning will come along and there'll be a destination that I want to go to. I've thought strongly about going to Egypt. I've never been there before. It would be exciting to go there. I think it's a destination that several destinations I've been, you don't have to go long. You just have to have the experience. And sometimes that doesn't take a week. It could take, 3 or 4 days and you've really gotten the sense of what it's all about. But that's on my radar. I enjoy Africa. Africa is such a big place that there's lots of different places you can go. It's not all about the animals. I've been in Rwanda and seen the silverback gorillas. I've been to Ethiopia twice. Those are breathtaking pictures when you're given the opportunity. I just think, one of my favorite places to go to in Europe is Prague. How the history there and how old it is. And I don't think you can really go wrong going anywhere. I think you bring a camera and you do a little research before you go to any destination. What seems to be happening over wherever you're going? What are people seeing? Where are people visiting? What are people taking pictures of? And then you try to be creative in your own right. And I think that's what is the most inspiring thing is seeing someone else's work. Yes, because that's what opens the door on wanting to go somewhere. But then being creative and trying to take a picture that maybe someone else hasn't taken, that will capture someone's attention, that someone sees your photograph and they're inspired now in going where you've been because they haven't been there.
How about when you're with somebody, or if you go with family, whether it is children or wife or whatever it might be, or do they get annoyed? Mine does, when I see a picture and I'm like, wait a second, I got to make this picture, and then I'm going and.
Well, I mean, a lot of times in Africa, the first couple of times I went with family, and then towards the last couple of times, I just like, personally, it's just I eat, I sleep, and I take pictures.
Yeah.
You know, it's not glamorous until I get home and I'm able to share the pictures with people. You know, if I wanted to go on a glamorous trip, you know, I'd probably go to Paris or London or Rome and places where I've been. Those are glamorous. Africa is amazing. It can be glamorous. I tend to go with the mindset that I want to go for 3 weeks, and I came back with 30,000 pictures, literally 30,000 pictures. But I was also in 3 different regions. That I was in Tanzania, which gave me the opportunity to see all those migration crossings. And, you know, I was there for 8 days. And then after that, then I went to Amboseli in Kenya, which is a animal national park. Some of the biggest elephants in the world are there. And the access that I got to them outside of the national park was what I wanted. I wanted that closeness of me and an animal, and an angle that I was inspired by seeing other photographers take, where they actually get out of the car, they get on their stomach, and they take that wide angle shot of an elephant picture that I've taken recently. It may not just be as dynamic as some of the pictures. The 3 right there. That's Craig. He's in Kenya. He's a super tusker, they call him. He almost looks prehistoric in person. You can see the size of his tusks compared to the next picture of another elephant. You can see the difference between what Craig is and what this elephant was. And this elephant was huge. It was almost mind-boggling to see Craig, and that was why I wanted to go there, because I was inspired by other photographers and their photography to see Craig. And this was a big elephant. And I was literally, and in my caption, I said, there's only a few blades of grass between me and 4 or 5 tons of elephant. I'm not going to outrun that thing, but I wasn't running at him. I was being slow to what I wanted. And I think he knew that I wasn't going to do anything crazy. And if you get a sense, they'll let you know right away that you're getting too close. But I wanted pictures like this. You can see that I'm not in a Jeep or a car. I wanted to even get lower on my stomach to get those wide angle shots, those dynamic shots that I've seen in coffee table books. That was my hope. Well, this trip got me these because that's all that was presented to me. Next time, maybe that's why I keep going back to Africa. This was on the national park. So Craig was right in front of me, but I couldn't get out of the car because I was on the national park. That's as close as I got. But if I could have gotten out, and it was probably from Craig from here to the wall here, but if I could have gotten out of the car, I probably would have been daring enough just to try to get as close as he would allow me to get 10, 15 shots really quickly. And that would have made my whole trip there, believe it or not. But that's the research that I put into my trips. I know where I'm going. I know what I want because other people have experienced it. And then it's just a matter of whether that is presented to me. And when it's animals, it's just 50-50 whether something is going to present itself. Going to other destinations, whether you go to another great area that's landscape photography, you're shooting the Colosseum in Rome or the Eiffel Tower. Those places aren't going anywhere. What time do you want to shoot them? At night, in the morning? They're going to be there. But shooting animals, it's 50-50, or people.
Another question? Yes.
The advancement in technology, obviously you being starting out in the 80s and now being in the 2020s now, how has your photo editing really changed? And you said obviously playing baseball, you weren't really focused on taking pictures, but how did Photoshop and all of its improvements really help you with your?
So the tech from the 80s and 90s, from the film to, look at the gear here. We have you got everything you need right there. That's the new those are the new RF lenses there. Those look like the new ones. So the technology is crazy. Can you?
Well, technology is advanced, and this is everything that was in my bag when I went to Africa. That's a 600 f4. It's a 200 400 zoom lens that I just gotten from Canon. Those are EF lenses. The only RF lens I have to go with my new Canon R3 mirrorless cameras was the smaller white lens there. That was a 70-200. And then everything else on the bottom there are smaller lenses for when I went to Ethiopia to do portrait photography. The longer lenses for the animals, unpredictable, don't know how close I'm going to be able to get. Those are necessary. But when I go to Ethiopia, well, I don't need the big long telephoto lenses. I'm going to be right after I get permission to take their picture, I'm going to be taking portraits of them. And that's why I had the smaller lenses. So basically my camera bag weighed 45 pounds. So I didn't maybe use everything, but at least I had it. I mean, I'd much rather have it than not have it. As far as editing, I use Lightroom. I'm not familiar with Photoshop. I know what it is. I probably have all the time in the world now, being retired, to understand it more. I just never got into it. My being artsy is going from a colored picture to a black and white. That's about as artistic as I get. If I want something done Photoshop wise, I might give my file to somebody to work on. Like I said, I have a photography exhibit going right now in New York, and I will be having an Africa exhibit in February here in Scottsdale at the Performing Arts in Scottsdale. But even those photos aren't edited so much that it takes away from what it really was.
So a lot of the students are using Lightroom. That's kind of what they use, but because I don't use Lightroom, I use Photoshop. I teach Photoshop.
Sure.
You're in good company here with most of these students. They know Lightroom. I think Canon just made a 100 and 300 f2. All
Yeah.
the way out.
Yeah.
You need to ask for that one.
Well,
That's a nice one.
I got a lot on that table right there, and
You need more.
a few more, I guess.
We had a question. Yes. Yes.
You mentioned how the Diamondbacks photography, would you ever like go to like Latin countries since you played with Hispanic players to see how like their baseball is played in their country since it's different everywhere? And photography.
So he doesn't shoot for the Diamondbacks. He does some other things for the Diamondbacks. But so essentially, the way that the Latin American players come up and how they play compared to maybe America, and is that a story maybe you'd like to shoot or document?
I just, you see what I shoot. There's a lot of sports photographers there, and God bless them. I've been, my sports photography is maybe going out and watching the drag races for 3 days, or shooting NASCAR, out in Goodyear. I could obviously, with my access and who I am, I could shoot the World Series if I wanted, an all-star game, go to a football game occasionally, but that doesn't interest me. It's not I was in the sports arena all my life. I want to get out. I want to see other parts of the world. I want to feel like I can share something with somebody that may never travel. I share pictures with my mom. She's 96 years old. She's never traveled outside of where she lives. She's never been outside of the country. So her favorite pictures are the pictures that I take that show her a postcard of a lion in Africa. This is what it's like. And then I can tell the story. But I let other people do the documenting, with the Diamondbacks, and they're great. I mean, they're young kids that are very innovative, very bright, very creative. I move along in a little bit slower of a pace now. And so I do what I do. I like doing it. I have no time commitment. I have no photo editor that I'm working for. And that's the beauty about where I'm at in my photography is I can give it 110% because I'm doing what I love to do, because it's what I want to do. And that's the beauty of being where I'm at. And all of you will have that opportunity at some point in your lives if you continue to do photography. And it's not a job for me. It's a passion. I don't sell my work. I've sold a few pieces here and there to bands and magazines and things like that, but I don't make a livelihood. I'm not that good, I don't think. I just love the challenge of taking a picture and capturing and sharing it. And you can see I'm well invested in it, and I just love it. It's a passion of mine. And it started in high school and it took off in college, where all of you were at. And you were so far advanced from where I was in college. There's so many more opportunities that present themselves, and you can be so much more creative than where I was or where anybody else was when I was 19, 20 years old in the dark room. You know, when I was developing a picture, a black and white picture, if something needed extra exposure because it needed to be darkened a little bit, or just the opposite, it needed less light, we were using a cardboard piece of paper and with a hole in it, and that was called dodging and burning. Today, it's, you know, you got Photoshop and Lightroom, and even me, I can make a picture a little bit more creative. And so the opportunities that you have are great, but everybody's got those opportunities. So what that means is that if you want to be above and beyond where everybody else is, then you've got to be a little bit more creative in what you're taking initially.
All right. And we had, what, I think, was there one back there before you? I know you. Go ahead. All right, go ahead.
All right, so you mentioned, taking pictures at drag strips. I saw earlier, like a couple months back to a year ago, you took pictures at a drag strip that's either closed down or is going to close down here in Phoenix. Are you interested in taking pictures in like historical areas?
Are you saying you drag strips, like dragsters, like Top Fuel type things, like at Thunderbird? Were you at Thunderbird?
Yeah, that was just kind of a fun thing, I don't do anything with those pictures. The things that really, like my Africa photos, I've been to Africa 5 times. So I was asked if I wanted to have an exhibit. I felt that would be the most appealing, even to everybody in this room. You would probably rather see a bunch of cool animals in different settings and what have you from Africa than a bunch of like race cars, for the most part. I love race cars, you love race cars, but not everybody loves race cars, but not everybody loves animals either. But I'm trying to please the majority. So the reason why I picked wildlife in Ethiopia and silverback gorillas is because I was hoping to touch and reach a majority of the people that would come through the gallery in New York. And it evidently has done well enough because the exhibit got extended by a couple of months. Now, I probably have a big enough portfolio that I could have had 30 photos of different concert pictures that I've taken, but I don't think personally, for me, that's interesting, but not for everybody. But, I just, for my initial exhibit, I was trying to please a majority of the people. And I thought, stuff like this, I feel, this is when I was in Vietnam. I'm driving down the road with the translator and they're harvesting the rice fields. And as a photojournalist, this is photojournalism right here. I tell the driver, stop, stop, stop. I get my translator and I march out to the rice fields where they're harvesting. And I ask my translator, can I ask him if I can take his picture? And so I gave him a few dollars and he allowed me to take his picture and he enjoyed it. You can see that. And to me, that's life-changing. I mean, look at that picture. To me, that's a great and it's not only the picture, but it's the story that goes along with it. And it's me posting it on my social media and giving people the opportunity to write their comment. Like a lot of times people say, well, what was the setting? What kind of camera equipment? And that's important, but it was like, how did it all come about? Was he friendly? You know, what was he smoking there? Did you have some? You know, but to me, it's not about sports anymore. This to me is, I love this stuff. And if I could be, you know, in these environments that are life-changing to me, I would, but I can't travel all the time. It's not feasible. It's just not possible. But when I go somewhere, I do my research, and that's based off of someone else giving me the idea. That's where you want to go. What did you see? I saw this. Well, what else? I go on YouTube every morning with my cup of coffee and I see what people are posting, and I go on my social media and I see the photographers that do it for a living. Once again, this is just a passion of mine. I just do it for fun. But I look at the people that travel the world for a job. What are you seeing all the time? Wow, I'd love to go to that place. And then I try to get creative like that, you know? Sure, I could have stepped to one side or the other and it would have been kind of a okay picture, but I try to get a little creative, frame the picture a little bit. You know, it started off as color, but I think it's timeless black and white. So I just love that. And once, I'm not the greatest photographer, but I try to take pictures that, you know, if they're interesting to me, hopefully they're interesting to somebody else, you know?
That's a nice
And that's not always the case. And that's okay, because photography is subjective. What you like, I don't like, or I don't like as much. And what I like, maybe you won't, and that's okay. But it's when I can post something and you all are a little inquisitive, you know, wow, that's kind of interesting, you know. And maybe you could take a picture like this and do something else to it that makes it even better. And so, you know, I get these ideas, but some of them are my own, but I also learn from other photographers, and they could be young or old, you know, based on what I'm seeing in magazines, YouTube, social media. You're never going to know everything. I mean, the photography is just like, I mean, look where I started. I started with film cameras, you know, and the only way you knew what you had is by going into the dark room and finding out, oh, these pictures will work. Or, you know, digitally, you take we all have digital cameras, you know. To me, it's awesome. I love digital cameras, but it's, boy, I mean, Ansel Adams would be probably turning in his grave, you know. Oh, you're cheating. You're looking at the back of your camera. You already know what you got. The beauty of it is in some of these photographers that I got to meet, you know. I got to meet a 19-year-old. Well, he's not 19-year-old. He was 19 years old when he shot for Rolling Stone magazine. His name was Baron Woolman. He was the first photographer for Rolling Stone magazine. We all know what Rolling Stone magazine is. You know, go back to the late 60s. That's when he was shooting. And I was inspired sitting down. He was at the ballpark and he wanted to talk baseball. And I go, what do you got under your arm? And he goes, oh, these are pictures that I took of Jimi Hendrix. We all know who Jimi Hendrix is, right? I go, holy smokes, you took these pictures? Let's talk rock and roll photography. And see, I get a little inspired. This is great stuff. But he didn't know what he had until he went into the dark room, you know? And that was the intriguing thing, is you got to know what your camera can do and the settings like the back of your hand. And that's how good these photographers were. National Geographic photographers, Time magazine photographers, Life magazine, photojournalists that are covering the war, major things like that. You know, back in the day, those were all film cameras. They didn't know what they had, but they knew how to use their equipment. So they knew 99.9% of the time they were going to get what they wanted because they knew what they were using and how to operate it. And that's the biggest thing, is knowing what you're doing with what you're using. And back then I was inspired by listening to all these people, just like I was by talking to some of my baseball peers that pitched before me. But I get just as excited talking to someone across the table that was a film photographer, because that's really photography, and listening to their stories.
One more, you have one here, or we have a couple, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple more
We're-
spots.
Yeah, we're approaching two and,
Okay.
Find any skills from your baseball career that are applicable to photography?
anything you can,
Well, there's a lot of parallels.
You throw your camera because you missed the picture.
Well, there's a lot, the parallels, I mean, there's no similarities. I regret not taking more photographs when I was a baseball player. Can you imagine the opportunities that I had in the World Series here in 2001 if I would have had my camera in the clubhouse, in the dugout, on the field? No other photographers were there. But I didn't think about that. And I didn't think about it, when I was a young kid. But the parallels are incredible. And I always talk about that because it's a question people always say. What are the parallels between photography and baseball? Well, I did lots of research in baseball. I knew the batters that I was going to be facing. I knew going in, I was going to be prepared physically and mentally. Well, from a photographer standpoint, when I go to, Vietnam or Africa, I know where I'm going. I know hopefully the opportunities that will present themselves. I'm ready to use my equipment. I had just bought a mirrorless camera, the R3, right before, 2 weeks before I went to Africa. Well, I haven't been using the R3 mirrorless camera. I was using the 1DX. So I'm not familiar with the R3 mirrorless camera. It can do all kinds of stuff. It's got eye detection, and you put settings there and it will track automobiles, animals, people. That's not what my other camera did. So there's a lot more settings. So knowing what your equipment will do before you are going to put it to the test, because you don't want to be caught off guard.
Another question? Go ahead.
Yeah, like what would you say is your favorite or the coolest experience you've had while traveling with photography?
The coolest experience you've had while traveling. I think that the elephant would be up there.
Yeah, well, the coolest experiences are the last ones that I just had. Traveling to Ethiopia. I was 12-hour drive into the mountains. And you could sleep a half a day and still wake up, and I still wasn't where I was going. But it was the opportunity. It was for the opportunity to take some pictures, and that's what I'm willing to do. And if you could go back to the beginning of my Instagram, you'll see the portrait style pictures that I posted on my Instagram for people to see. Right below the elephants, scroll up just a little bit. That's one. The opportunity to see and be given these opportunities are life-changing to me. I'm getting ready to have a Netter photography exhibit, and this is what I'm going to be presenting, because these photographs aren't in my other exhibit. These will enhance what I already have. This stuff is incredible, and it's life-changing. I probably thought the same way, no big deal. But you know what? When I was young, 6, 7 years old, and I looked at the National Geographic magazine, and I saw someone with a plate in their lips. And you know what? Now I'm taking a picture for myself. And it comes full circle. It was the same way baseball related. I grew up in the Bay Area. My favorite team was the Oakland A's. So when I was 7, 8 years old and we had Little League Day, we would go parading on the field. You've probably seen those days where the Little Leaguers are parading on the field. It's Little League Day. Well, you know what? I did that several times in Oakland Stadium. But the cool thing was that came full circle to me, just like the National Geographic, looking at it when I was 7 and now taking the pictures, was one day in Oakland, I was pitching against the Oakland A's, and it was Little League Day. And the Little League kids are walking right by me while I'm warming up, getting ready to pitch. And I kind of catch myself getting out of my zone, my baseball zone, and just kind of, that's me walking by there. Look at that. And the kids are waving at me, and now I'm completely out of my zone because I'm thinking like, you know, when I'm pitching back in the day, I was like, it was a feeding frenzy, like a great white shark. And now I'm waving to these kids and I'm going, that's me. And you know what? One of those kids is going to be just like me because that's the experience you have. Just like the National Geographic, you're going to have some life-changing experience now in your life that you're going to remember. And then it's going to circle back 30, 40 years later, and you're going to go, wow. And I've had a couple of them, one photography-wise and one professionally, baseball-wise. And we're all going to have those moments. Hopefully, it's something that you really cherish and enjoy.
We had another question. Was there one over here, Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned about how you spent so much time in baseball and how you kind of want to move away from that with your photography. A former teammate of yours, Ken Griffey Jr., is now a photographer for the MLB and the NFL. Have you talked to him about photography at all or anything like that?
Well, I just saw him recently in July at the Hall of Fame. I know he's a photographer. His son and my son both went down at U of A. And I know he was taking pictures of his son. His son played football down there. Beyond that, I don't know. I've never seen, you know, his portfolio of pictures, you know, so I don't know what he takes. I know recently he was at a football game, but that's also because his son works for the Cardinals now. So, but I haven't seen a lot of his work. So I can't really answer. We've talked a little bit. You know, I had my exhibit in Cooperstown in New York. So he was able to see my exhibit in July, and he was inquisitive and asked questions. And to me, that means that, you know, it opened his eyes a little bit as a photographer. I mean, naturally, it may not be your subject matter, but if you're asking questions, you're being inquisitive and you're wanting to be, you know, enlightened. And he did. So I'm sure if he puts his mind to photography like he did baseball, I'm sure he'll be a great photographer.
I think there's a lot more photographers out there, whether they're professional athletes or actors or whatever, than you realize. Larry Fitzgerald is a photographer. I was shooting golf one day doing a pro-am, and he was walking by and he grabbed my camera and turned it around and started taking pictures of me. I'm like, what? And I didn't realize he was a photographer. He's kind of funny too.
Last question up here.
There you go.
Obviously, being yourself and in the sports world, a lot of people are gonna say no to you, but when you're taking pictures anywhere else in the world, has there ever been a time where you really wanted to get something and somebody said, kind of, no, I don't want my picture taken or anything like that?
So anywhere in the world where somebody has said, no, I don't want my picture taken, maybe not recognizing you, or
Ethiopia, you can see I had a translator and they were all compensated for their time. The animals usually cooperate for the most part. There's been times where someone maybe might have been caught off guard and not prepared for a picture. You know, traveling where I travel, they just see me as a big, tall person. They don't see me as a baseball player. Ethiopia knows nothing about baseball or probably even sports. The animals surely don't know who I am or care. And when I travel to Europe, the only person that's going to recognize me, and I have been recognized, it's usually someone from the United States on a vacation as well. But that's few and far between. I really enjoy photography because I can kind of get in a zone and just kind of be in this zone on what I'm trying to create, what I'm trying to do. And that's a parallel to where I was in baseball.
All right. So I want to thank you guys for coming. I want to thank the Crowder family one more time for their support to Cronkite School Journalism and Mass Communication. Of course, our winners, Samantha, Susan, John. Thank you, Randy, for joining us also today. And on behalf of ASU and Cronkite School, Thank all of you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.